As we begin tonight, we will hear from the candidates for the Napa County Treasurer Tax Collector position, but some words about the League of Women Voters. The League started in 1920 after women won the right to vote. We are proud to say that the League of Women Voters is now celebrating a 100-year anniversary on February the 14th. The questions will be asked tonight are from the public, either submitted to the League of Women Voters question email or on cards from you, the audience. While we will not have time for everyone's questions, we hope to cover enough topics to help Napa County voters make an informed decision on each candidate. And you can find out further information on the candidates if you visit our website, votersedge.org. And the candidates have an opportunity to fill out a user profile and associate any of their papers. We have Spanish translations that are happening simultaneously. And our translator this evening is Dalia Hernandez. And we'd like to thank her for providing this valuable service and thank the Napa Valley Unified School District for the use of their translation equipment. And our candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 1.5 minutes for the questions, and a 1-minute closing statement. We will alternate which candidate starts the next question. Okay. Robert Minahen will start with a 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening. I am Bob Minahan, and I'm a candidate for the Napa County Treasurer Tax Collector's Office. Though elected, the Napa County Treasurer Tax Collector is not a political office. It is a technical office.
We're not hearing you. Could you hold the microphone a little closer?
It is a technical office. It requires the leadership of a municipal finance officer, and I am a municipal finance officer, having served Napa County as Napa County's Assistant Auditor-Controller for the last decade. I've been responsible for overseeing property tax distributions to the county schools, cities, town, and special districts for the past 12 years. I've collaborated with the Department of Finance, the State Controller's Office, and the California Department of Education on property tax laws, interpretations, and their impact on local taxing agencies. I work directly with the offices of Senator Dodd and Assemblymember Aguiar Curry and the Department of Finance to maximize the state's backfill of lost property taxes due to the 2017 Napa fires. These backfills benefited schools throughout the valley, as well as the county, cities, and special districts. In my capacity as a municipal finance officer, I developed the county's single-site jail plan, including a complete financing plan that will save county taxpayers in excess of $125 million over the next 25 years. A $128 million construction plan that will be funded without the issuance of any taxpayer debt. I developed the county's pension rate stabilization plan that will help offset future pension increases moving forward. I developed the recently adopted plan to pay off a deputy sheriff pension liability that will save the Napa County taxpayers in excess of $10 million over the next 13 years and make Napa County more competitive in the law enforcement recruitment arena. I am a municipal finance officer running for a municipal finance office. Thank you.
And now, Mike.
Well, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and to have the honor of running for Treasurer Tax Collector for Napa County. My name is Mike Basayne. Why am I running? First and foremost, I care deeply about the community. I was raised to believe that community service was non-negotiable. I've been here 35 plus years. My wife and I have raised 5 sons, and that is the message that we've tried to impart to our sons as well. We care deeply about the community. I've been engaged in both private boards, nonprofit boards over the years, as well as many public government engagements and boards. I currently serve as the chair of the Tax Appeals Board for Napa County. I have been twice chair of the Napa County Planning Commission, as well as vice chair of the Napa City Planning Commission over about a 12-year period. I currently am endorsed by two different supervisors, Ryan Gregory, Alfredo Pedrosa. I'm also endorsed by Mary Jill Teckel, Liz Alicio, and others in city and county government. My vision, as I see it moving forward, relates to sustaining and improving the county's financial health, and that includes being cognizant of the $250 million pension fund that, in an economic downturn, could be significantly impacted. I will focus on the prescriptive endeavor of safety, liquidity, and yield for the portfolio, and I also will focus on optimizing customer experience and customer service for our clientele in the county, namely the county taxpayers. Thank you.
That's perfect. And we want to ask, we still have some seats here in the front, and we don't want to block our emergency exit, so please feel free to come up right now before we start our first question. Mike Basayne, this question is directed at you. What is your approach to investing the $800 million in the Napa County pool? And you'll have 1.5 minutes to answer the questions. Can everyone see our timekeeper?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Shall I go ahead?
Please.
Okay, thank you. So my background includes municipal finance, bond and debt underwriting, investments that I've earned over 30 years. And that should not be discounted at all. Some significant portfolios that I've managed in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the past. So my approach is to first and foremost follow this prescriptive rule and law as dictated by our state following the Orange County debacle, which caused, of course, that county's bankruptcy. The key is to first and foremost focus on the safety, preserving, and sustaining the asset value. Secondly, maintaining liquidity that allows other departments and divisions of the county to have access to pools of funds. And then thirdly, to increase our yields if at all possible, but we do not chase interest rates as a matter of course. Safety, liquidity, yield in that order. And so for that reason, I take this very, very seriously. And I also want to say that this is a very collaborative position. There is an investment oversight committee that oversees the behavior of one's investments. And therefore, there is no reason and no way that one individual can behave in a roguelike manner. Thank you.
Bob?
So principal preservation, liquidity, and investment return is dictated by government code. It's not something that we need to address. Then we have the county's investment policy, which dictates what investments we can use at the treasurer tax collector's level. Third, we have to have a plan, and the plan is what is suitable investments for our portfolio. We have currently $800+ million in our treasury. We have determined approximately an 8% liquidity index, so we need about $65 million to be available at any point in time. I would invest that $65 million in the local agency investment fund. It's highly liquid. We would still expect about a 2% return currently on those funds. I would then look to stretch out our portfolio. Currently, our weighted average maturity of our portfolio is about 15 months. We can probably stretch that out a little bit farther. Then we also have two significant pots of money that we need to invest outside of our normal investing because we have $80 million set aside for the jail financing plan that we won't use for another year. We should look at that and invest that for a year. And we have $130 million from a recent Napa Valley Unified School District bond issuance that will be used for construction over the next 3-year period. Thank you.
I have a question of the moderator.
Sure.
I understood with regard to the rules of this forum that we were not allowed to have notes except a pencil and paper. And my compatriot here is reading from his notes.
Uh-oh. All right. We have to live by the rules.
And they are typewritten, so I did not bring my notes as I could have.
Well, thank you very much. And we're ready to begin our second question. And the question is, what do you consider the most important functions of this position? And we'll start with Bob.
Well, the treasurer tax collector has 2 primary functions detailed in its name. They're separate. The tax collector side of things, we collect upwards of $400 million a year in property taxes. That's just property taxes. We also have transient occupancy tax for all the hotels, so we collect another $13 million on top of that. And then we are kind of the county, the school's bank as well. So we receive funds directly from the state, and we have to record those depending upon who they benefit. We also have the investment side, and we've just talked about the investment pool, managing $800 million worth of not only the county, but the schools and special districts funds. We also have tangential. We have the treasurer tax collector sits on the pension advisory committee, so the treasurer tax collector is expected to help to handle the county's pension debt. It's about $230 million, not $250. And then it's also, the treasurer sits on the county's debt oversight committee. So when we walk through major debt issuances for potentially more building, more capital needs, the treasurer tax collector sits there. So I see it as 3: pension, treasury, property tax.
Great. Go ahead.
Would you please repeat the question?
Sure. What do you consider the most important functions of this position?
Thank you. First and foremost, again, I believe it relates to the investment side of the equation and making sure that indeed we are preserving and sustaining the asset value that the county holds. Certainly, there are processes that are time-proven, that are indeed ways that individuals within the county collaborate, and it is extremely important to maintain positive relationships, not only with the Board of Supervisors, but also the Investment Oversight Committee members, the Chief Executive Officer of the county, as well as the Controller and the Controller's Division. And then finally, the individuals who are advisors with regard to the portfolio. But indeed, there is a prescriptive process. There is a way to continue to collaborate as we always have. But what I would say is that the overarching requirement is to reach out, to engage, to listen, and to be a leader. Thank you.
Question 3 will be directed at Mike to begin. What do you see as the potential challenges or issues for Napa County tax base and investments over the next 25 years?
I think first and foremost, there are variables that we can't predict. We certainly have econometrics that allow us to get a sense of where things might go when we're operating with a model. But in truth, we have, of course, the potential for disaster, albeit natural disasters. We have the potential for terrorist acts. We have the potential for economic downturn. And so we really have to prepare for again, the downward sloping end of the curve. Right now, we've enjoyed the longest sustained expansion of our economy in history. Now we're waiting for the other foot to drop. And it's only a matter of time, and therefore we have to really look closely at ways that we can preserve, but not only preserve, that we can create healthy reserves to sustain us through that 25-year period that you're referring to. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, what do you see as the potential challenges or issues for the Napa County tax base and investments over the next 25 years?
I think by far the biggest risk that Napa County has is another real estate bubble burst. If you listen to the economists these days, they don't see that coming. But as all of us know, the real estate prices in this county have continued to skyrocket, which means the tax base has continued to grow. Where you look up and down the valley, it's not as big an issue for the county. However, within certain pockets within the county, you have a significant amount of exposure. City of American Canyon is a prime example. It has grown up quickly. It has larger homes, and the volatility in its housing market is dramatic. So a housing market turn impacts them greatly. From an investment side of things, I think we just need to pay attention to the yield rates. We look at how we invest, and we invest conservatively. So we're only talking about investing out for 18 months or so. We're investing in not stocks, we're investing in debt. We're not investing in debt of sketchy companies. We're investing in debt of our own government, and we're investing in debt of highly rated corporations. So from that standpoint, I think we can manage our portfolio fine. The biggest risk by far is the economy, and as the economy relates to the housing market.
Thank you. The next question, Bob will begin. Since consolidation of Treasurer Tax Collector and Auditor-Controller's office was discussed by the Board of Supervisors but not implemented, how would you ensure efficiencies are considered and coordinated between the agencies?
Well, as a member of the Auditor-Controller's office now, and having been in that office for the past 12 years, the interaction between the Treasurer Tax Collector and the Auditor-Controller's office is always solid, and we're solid on multiple levels. From a property tax standpoint, you have the three-headed monster with the assessor, the Treasurer Tax Collector, and the Auditor-Controller. We all have our distinct responsibilities. We all work collectively to achieve not only great service to our taxpayers, but also to our municipalities who benefit from these taxes. From just a pure day-to-day operation standpoint, we interact every single day dealing with questions that come in about revenue resources, about expenditures. Our staff work well together. Our leadership of our two divisions are tight. And so moving forward with the county, consolidation was not accepted by the board. I think it still is something we should take up in the future and address and look at, because we always want to make sure that we are doing things as efficiently as possible and making sure that we are maximizing every single dollar we can to push out to program as opposed to spending it in administration.
Thank you.
Efficiency in terms of cost savings is definitely a high priority whenever either a governmental or private sector entity is looking at a consolidation. There are potential problems with that. And certainly when we're looking at the consolidation of a Treasurer Tax Collector office with an Auditor-Controller's office, we need to sustain and retain checks and balances. And so there, as I may have mentioned, there are other counties that currently have done this successfully. The key is to maintain objectivity, and if you have one person who is overseeing both, it may indeed be an issue. I believe in collaboration. I believe in ongoing conversation. I believe that it is critical to collaborate. And I do know that historically we've had a great positive interaction between the tax assessor's office, the treasurer, tax collector's office, and the controller's office. So I would expect, even though at this point that the Board of Supervisors has unanimously turned down the possibility of these two divisions merging, that there are ways that we could find a happy medium so that there is better collaboration and indeed excellent 360-degree checks and balances.
Great. So we can take a couple more questions. Does anyone have another question? Can you write it on a card and submit it to our page? Okay. All right. And our next question will be to Mike. Both of you mentioned the county pension responsibility. What do you see as the best way forward adequately compensating workers and maintaining the county's fiscal health?
Well, one thing that is currently plaguing CalPERS right now is the component of medical cost increases. And CalPERS, I believe, has total funding somewhere in the neighborhood of $330 to $340 billion. And so this is a widespread issue. When we're looking at that increasing medical cost component, that is for post-employment workers, the medical component, that is something that we don't necessarily have absolute control over. And so it's very important to try to get ahead of the curve if we can. It is about, of course, being prudent, looking at ways that we can preserve the assets in the pension fund, and not really chasing risky opportunities, again, that could certainly impact the quality of the portfolio.
Bob?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Both of you mentioned the county's pension responsibilities. What do you see as the best way forward to adequately compensate workers and maintain the county's financial health or fiscal health?
Okay, when it comes to compensating workers, we do not live in a bubble. So we compare our employees' salary scales to those of comparable counties and surrounding counties. Sometimes with the cost of housing, we run into trouble, but we always have to keep in mind what the impact of any MOU negotiations that we may have will have on the financial health of the county. As it relates to pensions specifically, we have to understand that we have a big nut to deal with. We have $230 million of pension to deal with. We can't control the assets that PERS invests. However, we can get on top of a few things by having to push assets, push funds that the county has against that liability. I wouldn't give the money directly to PERS. In the pension rate stabilization fund that was my idea and that we created and we adopted, the idea is to move more funds into a separate investment account invested by a different organization than PERS, build those assets as we move forward, and then use those assets to mitigate any future pension increases as we move along. From a safety standpoint, from our sheriff's operations, we can push money to PERS to deal with that issue. They are our most expensive employees. They are our most expensive pension. And so dealing with their liability makes sense.
Thank you. And our final question will be, and Bob will answer this one, how would you measure your performance if elected?
So I'm assuming we're talking about Treasury performance. Government Finance Officers Association, of which I am a member, in their best practices states that every governmental treasury should have a benchmark. The unfortunate thing is they don't tell you what that benchmark is. And so there are multiple ways of doing it, two of which are comparing yourself to comparable governments. And then there is the Merrill Lynch 1 to 3 year government index. Neither of those works because they don't truly look at the liquidity needs of each individual government. So my idea would be to look at probably a 12 to 18 month average of 2 year T-bills, because that's kind of comparable investments of what we're making. 2 years trying to mimic what the weighted average maturity is of your investment portfolio, and T-bills, because that's about where we are. You may look for a trailer, so instead of using today's average as a starting point, you back up a year because you've invested over a period of time, but 2 year T-bills is where I would go.
Great. Mike?
And again, just in terms of the performance of the portfolio, basically, we're not looking at huge yields in this current environment. And our investments typically are in government debt. So the returns tend to be shorter duration at lower levels. Hence why T-bills would be a good weighted average standard to look at. Again, there probably are multiple models that may be utilized and work for other governmental entities in other venues around the country. But I believe that first and foremost that we are tracking with what are those common indices that I've just mentioned, and certainly have been mentioned, that we look to improve the portfolio. We look at ways that we are not losing asset value, that we're not seeing downturns or downticks, and it is such that the structure of review with the Investment Oversight Committee is a 360-degree evaluation of the performance. It is not one individual, it is multiple individuals working together to a positive outcome.
Thank you very much. And now we're ready for our closing statements for our candidates. We'll have 1 minute for closing statement. I also want to remind you that everyone should have received their primary election sample ballot at this time and their brochure. Does everyone remember receiving that in the mail? Should be coming this week. If you don't see it within the next few days, please call the elections department. We have voter registration cards here to the back side. If you'd like to, if you know anyone that needs to register to vote, please take a card with you. We'll have a 1 minute closing statement, and we will begin with Mike Basayne. Am I?
It's
Please.
Basayne, but thank you.
Basayne.
Thank you
Mike
very much.
Basayne. Thank you very much. 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you my thoughts and to field your questions tonight. First and foremost, this is a vote about leadership. Technical skills are critical to the job, but I am uniquely qualified, certainly for any number of those technical skills, having performed as a banker, as an investment analyst, as an individual who has served as a consultant and earned my stripes over a 30-year period. I have, I believe, a very positive vision for the county in terms of its financial health. I believe that we need to continue to focus on sustainability in the potential outcome of an economic downturn. I do believe in safety, liquidity, and yield in that order. And thirdly, I do believe in optimizing customer experience and doing the very best. Please vote for leadership and vote for Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. As we move forward, I have the support of the Treasurer Tax Collectors serving Napa County for the past 30 years in Jim Hudak, Tammy Frazier, and Marcia Hull. Those who know what the requirements of this job are know that I am the right candidate. I'm also supported by Senator Bill Dodd, Assemblymember Aguiar Curry, Supervisors Ramos and Dillon, Napa County Superintendent of School, Dr. Barbara Nemko, Auditor-Controller Tracy Schulze, retired Auditor-Controller Pam Kindig, and Sheriff John Robertson. All of these people I work with as a municipal finance officer. All of these people know the requirements of this job. I look forward to serving you as your treasurer tax collector. I'm a municipal finance officer and the only municipal finance officer currently, and this is a municipal finance office.
Thank you very much.